Hi, everybody, and welcome to our presentation, Predicting New Product Success with AI-Powered Concept Testing. I'm Quirk's editor, Joe Ridholm. Thanks for joining us today. Just a quick reminder that you can use the chat tab if you'd like to interact with other attendees during today's discussion. And you can use the Q&A tab to submit questions to the presenter, and we'll get to as many as we have time for at the end. Our session today is presented by Cambri. Dani, take it away.
Great, thank you, and welcome to our session, everyone. Great to have you all joining. Greetings from a cold and snowy Stockholm. So my name is Dani Kamras, one of the co-founders of Cambri, and I will be taking you through our methodology and approach to concept testing, where we use AI to bring together point of sales data and survey data for a more robust and accurate prediction of how tested concepts will actually perform in market. So that's the topic of today. So let's get started. Just a few words about us. Mainly work with CPG companies throughout the whole innovation process. Many of the major CPG players, Coke, Nestle, Diageo, Carlsberg, work with us. We help them, as said, across the innovation process, but I would say the most of the work we do is in the early stage of innovation, in idea screening, concept development, concept validation, and that is where our focus will be today as well with this presentation. So if we first take a step back and just highlight what is the role of the concept and what is actually the role of concept testing, because I think this is also important in how we have set up our methodology. So the role of the concept is, of course, to drive trial of the product by positioning it so that consumers see the product as relevant and of value to them. And then the role of concept testing is then, of course, to understand if the concept has potential to drive trial among the target group, but also understand why or why not and how to improve it to increase the chances of it in actually driving trial then. So the stronger concept you have, the more efficient your execution, meaning the distribution, marketing, and other things that you invest in it should be to drive sales. So if you have a strong concept, you should be able to get more bang for the buck with your investments compared to if you have a weak concept. So concept test results should really help you back the right horse, so to say. But then if we look at the other part, what is the business impact of a concept? What point of sales metric best tells us the performance of the concept? Because as you know, a lot of other things go into a product succeeding than just the concept. So what is a good point of sales metric to measure the concept's success and strength? So how we define success is that the higher velocity or rate of sales, so basically average sales per average store where the product can be found for the product at 6 months after the launch, the more successful we consider it to be. So we see as a success of the concept, it's measured by velocity or rate of sales 6 months after the product has been launched. And why is that? We see that velocity is the best point of sales metric to really isolate the concept's impact on the product success, because it neutralizes for distribution. And when we look at 6 months after launch, it also minimizes repurchase behavior, meaning if the actual product then delivers on its promise. So if you get a high velocity when you launch a product, that's usually where the concept has the biggest impact. And a high velocity is also important because then you risk of getting delisted, and it actually helps you then earn more distribution going forward. So that's a bit on how we view concept testing and concept evaluation and how we define success for a concept or strength. So what do we do differently than compared to traditional concept testing, and why? So looking at 4 different points here that we want to highlight and go through today. So the first one is we are benchmarking against real market performance. So instead of benchmarking against concept test results of concepts that maybe never even got launched to market, and a lot of concepts that became failed products in market, we are benchmarking against true product success in market of recent launches to really know if the concept will drive through trial or not. So that is the first part, which we see is really important, that you are benchmarking against something that is truly relevant. Second one being that we're including all open-ended data in the analysis. So instead of subjectively cherry-picking verbatims, we are using all open-ended data in the survey in a scientific and a systematic way to really quantify the qualitative feedback's impact on the concept's potential to sell well. So that is the second part. The third part is that we are picking the concepts apart to relevant drivers. So we pick the concept apart in the results to 9 drivers to understand why it is performing as it does and how it could be improved. So the model really understands which drivers are more or less important in your category in order to drive a trial or high velocity, basically. And the fourth point is we are using a validated and accurate machine learning or AI model. So we use a model that has been trained on a combination of point of sales data and concept test data, so survey data, and with full transparency on how accurate the model is to predict the concept's potential in market. So we are fully transparent what type of correlation we see with our model in predicting these concepts in a way how they then actually end up performing in market. And with this more robust methodology, we see constantly across categories and regions that we can get more than 3 times higher accuracy of picking the right concepts to take to market. And also with this robustness, we get a better understanding of how to optimize the concept, leading then to more successful product launches and growth, basically. So if we quickly go through these 4 points I highlighted, the first one being benchmarking against real market performance. So the traditional way of defining concept potential is very simplistic, relying on 1 or a few data points like purchase intent and uniqueness, and then you compare that to a benchmark. And as said, comparing against a lot of old concepts that never hit the market, many of them being unsuccessful, and in many cases you don't even know what is in the database that you're comparing against. So that is a challenge that we wanted to tackle and develop then a much more robust way of doing that. So using not only KPIs, we are also using those, but we are building on top of that our model with all the open-ended data. So we have a much more data points in our model. And then as said, comparing that against real market performance when we are combining the point of sales data in the evaluation as well. So it's a much more robust data set that we are looking into. So the second point was that we include all open-ended data in a systematic and scientific way in our evaluation of the concept strength. So let me just show you a few examples so you more concretely understand what we mean with that and how we actually do it. So this is a fairly typical example that many of you have probably faced. You get a high purchase intent score, in this case 83% for a top 2 box purchase intent, clearly over the benchmark. But then in the open-ended data, you see a lot of contradictions or at least conditions to this. People saying, yes, I would buy it if this and that were true, or that they can't actually even express why they would buy it. So what do you do then? Do you discount at 83 and make it 75, 70? That's, of course, impossible to do manually, but something where the machine learning and AI is very well equipped for to do that type of analysis. So in our methodology, our platform automatically then analyzes all the open-ended answers from the survey, gives each answer a sentiment and also a label or several labels if the open-ended answer was about trial interest or talking about this product being better or worse than something they buy today, or if they talk about the use occasions or when they would use it and why and so on. And all of this is then quantified and weighed in by our AI model as part of the concept evaluation together with the KPIs. The third point that I mentioned earlier is then that we are picking the concept apart. And this is one thing that we do differently and where we have tried to really improve the actionability of concept test results in that way that you can understand what is working well, what is working less well, how does that compare to products that have launched to the market. So where should I look for improvements and iterations of my concept to increase its chances of then delivering a high velocity when it hits the market. The concept is then automatically evaluated on these 9 drivers to then understand the concept on a more detailed level. So these drivers are a combination of open-ended topics and KPIs. So for example, differentiation and superiority, that driver is a combination of open-ended answers where the respondents are somehow talking about this being unique, this being better or worse, something that they're using today, but also the uniqueness KPI. We usually see that uniqueness KPI alone is a very weak KPI in a way. It just says if it's unique, but you can be unique in many ways. You can just be unique and weird, and we are really putting those together with the open-ended data to make sure that the uniqueness we are measuring there is something that is differentiated in a positive way and superior to something that they are consuming today. So in the results, each driver gets a score telling how much it is contributing to the concept strength score that we call Launch AI score, so meaning that the total concept strength. So from there you can see which are pulling up the score, which are pulling down the score, and then go into details of that specific driver to understand why is it the negative one or why is the positive one, and what can I do about it to improve it. The fourth point is that this is a validated and accurate model. So that's a bold statement, but we, of course, are extremely data-driven in this and try to be very transparent with our customers when we are starting a collaboration about validating and also calibrating their model with their data, both to improve the accuracy of the model even further, but also to be able to be really data-driven and open to the whole organization, not only to the insights team, about how accurate is the model currently. And usually we then compare that to traditional action standards on how they are performing and giving the right recommendations. So let's look at that more in detail. What do we mean with that? So what we have done is that we have trained our model by testing products in different categories and regions that have launched to the market in the past 2 years. Then we know their velocity or rate of sales, and we know what it has been 6 months after the product was launched, so that we are accessing through point of sales data. And we then create concepts out of those products that we test like regular concept tests, so that our model can then start to learn the traits of success and failure in that specific category. So it basically learns what type of consumer feedback indicates a high velocity and what type of consumer feedback is indicating a low velocity and poor market performance. So we are testing products where we know that they have had very high velocity 6 months after launch, a bit above average, below average, really weak velocity. And in that way, we can get the model to understand the traits of success and failure and really the nuances of what type of feedback is indicating then success in market. So when You then run concept test with Cambri. You do it pretty much like you've done. There is a survey. You add your stimuli in the form of a concept description or value proposition and a pack shot in most cases. And then that goes out to consumers, to real consumers. And what you then get back is this prediction, velocity, rate of sales prediction for the concept, and also then a breakdown of these drivers on what are the strengths and weaknesses of this concept. Together then, of course, with summarizations of the open-ended data to try to understand the why behind things. So even if we're talking about AI here, just want to be super clear, we're still going out to real consumers, real respondents. The AI part is just in this analysis phase part. So we're not in these type of cases using any synthetic respondents. So here are a few examples of different categories. We are continuously running these type of projects, and here are a few examples. Like I said before, we typically see 3 times higher accuracy and correlation between in-market performance and the recommendations that our launch AI is giving you compared to relying on action standards like single KPIs, purchase intent, and so on against benchmark. And to be honest, in pretty much all the categories and regions where we have done this, we can see and prove that there is very weak correlation between a purchase intent versus how the products actually do in market. And I think this is something more and more of our clients are aware of and want to find a more robust way of evaluating concepts that actually gives you then outputs and recommendations that are in line with how these products then perform once launched to the market. So we are evaluating our model in 3 different parameters, you could say. We are evaluating how well it is able to identify successful products, so those that will have a high velocity, how well it's able to identify weak products, so those that have a very low velocity. But then the third one is really important, since this methodology is often used for idea screening. We are looking at the Spearman correlation. So basically measuring how good is this methodology and action standard in putting the tested concepts or products in the right order, in the order of their velocity than in market. So here we can see that we typically get up to around 0.6 correlation there. Now the latest projects we've delivered, we've been up to 0.7 in correlation, and these start to be really strong correlations when single KPIs against the market performance, you usually land somewhere around 0.2 or even on 0 or the negative side, meaning that there is no or fairly weak correlation. With this, we see that our model learns that there are different things that matter more or less in different categories. So for example, in the candy category here, we have 4 examples from 4 different categories. So if we take the candy category here as an example, we can see that taste is more or less 5 times as important as believability if you are to launch a successful product. And if we look at vitamins and supplements, there we see that believability is actually more important than taste. So there are, of course, different things that you need to make sure in different categories that you deliver on, or otherwise it will be more or less impossible for you to deliver a successful product. So these type of meta-analysis and learnings we are then able to identify when we are combining point of sales data and survey data in our approach. And that is then something that our model is automatically able to understand when doing these concept test evaluations. But it's, of course, really valuable information for our customers as well, that they know that, okay, these are like the must-haves if we're gonna develop a concept and launch a product is going to drive high velocity. So I'm going to show you just a few visuals and examples then of what this can look like. So it becomes more concrete. So here is an example of a product that scored actually really low on purchase intent. We looked at different traditional measures. We looked at top box purchase intent, top 2 box purchase intent. We also looked at the combination of purchase intent and uniqueness as an action standard. I would say these are the most typical action standards companies are working with that are using more traditional concept testing methodologies. So on all these more traditional action standards, it's actually scored below the benchmark. So basically saying it's a no-go, it's not strong enough. But this was actually one of the most successful product launches in the ready meals category in the last 2 years, if we measure success by velocity or rate of sales. And our methodology was then able to identify this as a strong concept. So why did it then get it right, but the traditional KPIs did it? Of course, this is a really polarizing concept we can see from the results, and that is clearly pulling the purchase intent score down in general. But despite this dislike and rejection due to lentils, these curry flavors that pull a purchase intent score down, there is clearly a target audience that is big enough who sees immediately a clear use occasion and several relevant benefits that are then leading to true trial among them. So we see here that the strongest driver that is contributing most to the concept strength in this case is use occasion and lifestyle, where we see almost 90 positive comments about this being like an excellent quick weekday lunch when time is limited, but nutrition matters. So we see that a lot of people immediately comment this and see it that's where they would really place it, and that's really when they would consume it. Many also see that the product can be used in versatile ways, as a complete meal or just with bread and so on. So even if there are 47 negative comments about people saying they dislike lentils and over 30 negative comments about people not liking Thai or curry flavors, the model is able to identify that there is still a big enough group who are immediately seeing a clear use occasion and several benefits that are truly relevant to them. This is how the full list of drivers were for this concept, so all 9 drivers, and we can see it scores well on most drivers. So it's really a concept that is well balanced and aligned on bringing both the use occasion, the ingredients, the healthiness aspects, or really the benefit, but also the appearance and the quality perception together. So all of those seem to work in line, and there is not like a confusion for who is this product or why should I buy it and so on. So in this case, the product has been developed in a very good way, in that way that all of those things seem to align nicely. So it's only taste and then differentiation and superiority that are just slightly on the negative side. So no very clear weaknesses. Other elements then that just showing what the analysis is based on is then this type of output from the platform. So this is really how we try to also collect this open-ended data and collect it in a way that gives us actionable feedback from the consumers. So we are asking them first in the actual concept description to highlight things they like and dislike, and then motivate why that is the case. And the same goes for the pack. And here we see a level down in our platform how the data is shown to you. So you get these AI summaries that I showed to you on this slide. But then if you go a layer down to the content analysis, then you can actually see how the model is working with these open-ended answers. So each open-ended answer then gets a sentiment, if it's positive, negative, neutral, but also gets a label, and then you can actually see the actual raw data there as well. So you have always access to that as well. But the AI is really doing the heavy lifting for you in making sure that all that open-ended data is used to its fullest potential, and also that it's analyzed in a systematic, scientific way, and in that way it can be weighed in to the overall evaluation of the concept. So this is basically how these different elements of our concept testing should then help you, and how you should benefit from what we call Launch AI. So we have the Launch AI score that should be used as the main action standard in order to have the highest chance of taking the right concepts to market, and in that way drive growth and be more efficient in your distribution and in your ad spend and so on. So that is like really the first filter of things. Then after that, you would go in, look at the driver scores to really understand to what extent the concept strength is driven by the different parts of the concept. Can you identify clear strengths, clear weaknesses? And then we have these type of driver summaries that is really summarizing the consumer feedback for that specific driver. So you get a summarization about, okay, what are the positive, negative things people are saying or reacting to when it comes to the appearance, for example. Okay, how can we then act upon that and improve it? And as said, with these steps, customers who are following this and using this methodology, we see that there is, depending on categories, but usually 3 times higher accuracy, higher correlation between the recommendations and how the products then actually perform in market. Good. That was my 27-minute monologue. So I hope we have questions, because I know there was a lot of probably new information for many of you.
Looks like we've got some coming in here. I've got a few that came in a little bit earlier. Question here just about what kinds of point of sale or behavioral data are used in this approach. I mean, and how do you ensure that they're relevant across like the different categories and markets that you might be looking at?
Yeah, so it's point of sales data on an SKU level, and usually we're looking at the last 24 or 36 months, so covering the whole category. We usually make a cutoff with products that have really low distribution. So if you don't have if you have below 5% weighted distribution, we take that away basically. So that's something we do, and we have like a bigger model for larger categories. So example, we have a model where we have a lot of data from different food categories, but then we are also doing calibrations per category. So there we usually then collaborate with our customers to get their specific category data and do like a validation and calibration exercise together with them, both to build the credibility and us being able to show you that, okay, this is how accurately our model is now able to predict velocity in your category. This is what traditional KPIs would have said. So our accuracies, if we are talking about accuracy in measuring how well it identifies successes and failures, with like a general food model, our accuracy is usually somewhere in the 70% range. But if we then do a calibration for the customer on their specific data on top, we usually get somewhere around 80% accuracy in it being able to identify successes and failures, basically.
Sure. Great question here from Zachary about what about products where the sales velocity isn't as important to measuring success, for like a one-time offering or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good point. Of course, we work with a lot of categories where you have a lot of seasonal products and limited time offers, of course. So what you still get out of it is that you probably have maybe 3-4 ideas, concepts that you're choosing between on which one of them to launch. So even if you necessarily aren't that interested in the velocity, you are getting a ranking from us based on this Launch AI score, in basically telling you which of these, or in which order our methodology would rank them, basically. So you still get like a nice ranking, and you can like screen out ideas. So if you have 5 ideas, which one should we launch for Halloween this year or whatever it is, you are still getting a ranking that is then much more accurate than just having like a rank them by purchase intent, for example.
Sure. Just another question here, generally asking about which markets this is available in, and I'm assuming maybe also what languages are available.
Yeah, so currently it's pretty much North America, whole of Europe. We're live. We are doing work currently in Asia as well, where we have local data. So in Africa, we hope to be kicking off a similar exercise there as well. But the whole of North America, whole Europe, and quite many markets in Asia as well is where we already have a working model and enough data for it.
Great question here. What kind of lift or business impact have some of your clients actually seen after adopting the AI-powered concept testing?
Yeah, good question, and something that is, of course, super interesting and important for us. So, of course, this methodology hasn't been around for that long. We have been working with this with our customers for a bit over a year and a half now. So there aren't that many products, since many of you who work in CPG know that if you start developing something today, it will not be launched next week. It takes some time there. So that's why these validations are also done in a like backward looking way. But I think what we really want to accomplish with this, and where I think we've started great collaborations with customers, is that we feel that the insights team should be much more accountable for giving the right recommendations to the team on which concepts to move forward with.
Mm-hmm.
And the insight team should follow through that loop that, hey, these were concepts we tested. We recommended you to move forward with this one. They should follow that loop and then understand, how did that actually go? Was that the right recommendation or not that we gave the organization? And this is a missing piece that we see way too often. And that's something also that we want to be accountable for. So now when we're starting these collaborations with our customers in this way, we can actually look back and see that the last 24 months, you've launched this many products. This many of them were successes. They got this much velocity. These many were failures. And then we have that as a starting point where we maybe see that, okay, today, 65% of our product launches don't make it to the velocity levels that they should. And then we can together start working on that as our starting point and benchmark, and then following that through a few times a year when products get launched. So I would love to say that, if we would have been doing this for several years, then we would have much more we could say about the actual impact. But I think already that mindset for insights teams to become more accountable, to be more responsible for following through the loop and not just giving recommendations and no one then knows or follow-ups. Have we been given right recommendations, or have we given wrong recommendations to the organization? I think that is a huge step up already in the mindset and the responsibility of the insight teams that we are really trying to encourage and, of course, be part of ourselves as well.
Sure. Kind of moving along from that to this being sort of a new approach. How do you, there's a question here about how do you integrate this kind of testing into existing insight workflows, or, a stage gate process that you might have going or something like that?
Yeah, so it's definitely what we presented today is definitely in the early stages. So both for idea screening part, so where you already have a long list of early stage concepts that you just want to rank, and with the correlation that we have, we can then give a very good ranking on those concepts. And then usually there is a step between that is more about developing, iterating the concept, where we come in with the robustness of the open-ended data analysis and the drivers to understand, okay, which are things that we can still improve. And then the third phase is then the final validation phase, where you are really getting the last sign off that this concept strong enough or not in market. So I would say it's those like 3 steps where we are part of the stage gate process today.
Sure.
So typically I would say there are probably, what do they call it, if it's stage 1 to 3 or 0 to 2, depending a bit on the organization.
And two, they're also wondering just about how this kind of AI-powered concept testing compares to like traditional monadic or sequential test, just in case, in terms of like reliability or accuracy, things like that.
Yeah, I think the nice thing with it is that it's very similar in its approach, and you as a customer or user, you are pretty much working in the same way as before. We of course have a setup of the survey that requires specific questions and so on. So in that way, it's not like a huge shift, but the shift comes really then from the analysis part of things, where, like I said here before, typically a 3 times higher accuracy there. So in that way, it's not the big change in how you work with concept tests, but the output that you get is more accurate and should be more actionable as well. So that's where really the difference is coming from.
Sure. Question here too, I think, that's just about how the end client or how the user would use the product. I mean, is it a DIY solution, or do they send the concepts to you to test? And, can they be specific in terms of who they want to survey, and then just general, I think talk a little bit about how it's usable from the user perspective.
Yeah, good question. So it's a platform. So you can use it in a DIY way. So you just set up your STIM. The platform automatically generates a survey according to the methodology that we have. You choose your target group. Our recommendation is to use a target group that is typically, depending a bit on the category, past 6 months category buyers or non-rejectors of the category is what we recommend, because that's how we train the model as well. So you should choose a target group that is representing the target group from where you see that this concept product will source sales from. What was the question again?
Well, I think just the user's experience, and then how much flexibility there is for who they survey and what they're asking.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's on the target group part, and as I said, you can use it as DIY, but you can also just give us a brief, and then we are basically doing the work for you. But of course, utilizing the platform then ourselves. So it depends a bit on the organization, on how much resources and time they have. And you don't have to choose either or. It can be a hybrid collaboration there as well.
Sure. Well, I think we've gotten to everybody's questions here. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dani, and thanks, Cambri, for putting this together. And thanks, everybody out there, most importantly, for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.